Have you ever worked with someone and they were just impossible? They'd say, "We should do this." And you know that's absolutely not the thing you should be doing. I'll walk you through a simple method to shift your perception of the other person so you can start solving problems together instead of creating them. I'm Sarah Bacca, and I've supported people through the messy middle of change for over a decade. These are the same approaches I've used with everyone from autistic teenagers to executive teams. From birth, we create models of how the world works. Imagine that every person is a game creator, and the game world they've created is the world they literally live in. The world has its own rules, limits, and logic, even when we don't see them, and they can be tools for creativity or they can be a prison. The world they've created might have peaceful valleys, and it might also have dragons flying through the air. When I try to work with this other person, I'm essentially visiting the world that they've constructed, and it might not make sense to me. I might not understand how they can be afraid of dragons because in my world, dragons are my best friend. How do I make sense of their world without judging them for being afraid of dragons? How do I get curious in a way that leaves space for them to be curious about their world too, maybe even for the first time? And then how can we talk to each other and work together when we're from different planets with different beliefs about dragons? That's where clean language comes in. At the heart of clean language are the clean language questions. They're simple, but they work differently from most questions we usually ask. One way they're different is they start with the other person's words. That's what makes them clean. By using their words, whatever you ask is adjacent to where their attention already is. It influences and directs attention because all language does that, but it does it cleanly because it's mostly sourced from their vocabulary. A person's words are the structure of their world, and they reflect what's going on in their internal world that you cannot see and they may not even be aware of. So in clean language, it's essential that you use their exact words, but not all of their exact words. And we'll talk about choosing which of the words in future videos. For now, let's say you're working with someone and they say, "I just feel stuck. I keep trying different things, but I end up in the same place every time." Now, there are 10 most frequently used clean questions, and each one navigates you to a different part of the other person's world. But for now, let's look at the 2 clean language questions that will get us started with mapping out the other person's world. These are the questions that help us discover the characteristics or attributes of their world. Note that these questions do not try to fix anything the person said or change it, which is true of all clean questions. The questions we're going to talk about today are what kind of and anything else about. So if I was working as a professional helper, like a coach or a therapist, I would use what's called the 3-part syntax, where I repeat back a little bit of what they said, and then I said, and their words, and when their words, and then I ask a clean question. So I could say, and stuck, and when stuck, what kind of stuck? Or I could say, and same place, and when same place, anything else about same place. Or if we were at work and wanted to be more conversational and not make it too weird, and let's be honest, I'm really good at making things weird, but if I was trying not to, I could just ask, what kind of stuck? Notice that this is really very different than the way we might normally talk. So like in a normal conversation with a friend, if I wanted to help and give some advice, I might say, "Oh, you're stuck? Maybe you just need a new plan. What works for me is..." But that's not clean because it came from my world with my rules and not their world. And it introduces a new rule to their world that a new plan might be a solution. It also assumes that being stuck is a problem that needs to be fixed, which clean would not automatically assume. I might want to give them some hope, so I might say, "You're not really stuck, you just haven't tried everything." But that again changes the rules of their world. I'm assuming there are other things they can try and that they're worth trying. I'm also negating their experience a little bit, which can cause people to feel like I'm not really seeing them. I might decide that what they need to get unstuck is to focus on a goal. So I might say, "What's being stuck keep you from doing? What's your goal?" Not only have I decided that being stuck is a bad thing, I'm trying to pull them into a future that they might not have even considered yet. With clean language, instead of adding new rules to their world, you work with them to explore the rules that are already there. This helps both of you to see how their world is built. In this world, there are some rules, like all worlds. Stuck is a state you can be in. There's a kind of I that can be stuck. And not only is I stuck, they're just stuck. And what kind of stuck is that stuck that's just stuck? And they've tried different things, but what kind of things? And when they end up in the same place, is there anything else about that same place? What kind of place is it? There's so many clues to the rules of their world with this one sentence. When you use clean language, you start training their attention on their world, and you also get out of their way so that they can start to see the patterns in their world for themselves. Is stuck something that they are often? As David Grove, the creator of clean language and a therapist, said, the I-ness of the therapist should cease to exist. A person's world cannot do something it wasn't organized to do, no matter how desirable that thing may be. In other words, in any moment, people cannot not be themselves. Everything that makes them who they are will have adapted to and be dependent on every other thing that makes them who they are. My well-intentioned advice or ideas probably don't work in their world, and it certainly can't change the entire landscape that they've spent their whole life building. But a clean question that helps them see a mountain they didn't even know was there, now that can make a difference. A clean question sends a client on a quest. Whether they find the Holy Grail is less important than that they seek it, and in doing so, learn more about themselves along the way. When you're working with someone using clean language, the clean language becomes your partner. It becomes a trialogue instead of a dialogue between you, the person you're working with, and the symbols that make up their world. Those symbols have a relationship between each other, and each symbol stands for things that are happening in their actual life. That's why the experts on one-to-one clean language, Tompkins and Lawley, call it symbolic modeling. There's also other methods for using clean language, such as with teams and groups of people, interviewing, and in other ways that we'll cover in other videos. Basically, clean language takes what's going on and changes it from 2D to 3D. When it's 3D, it makes someone's rules visible, rules that they might not even know they have and are imposing on their world. And once they know it's there, and they can see it, and you can see it, then each of you can figure out what you need and how you can work together at your best. Clean language questions may be simple, but they're not easy. And clean language actually is a lot more than just the questions. It's about learning how to set your own world aside and train your attention so you can explore their world with them without changing the rules. It's so you can help solve a problem that can make their lives better, or so you can understand your teammates so you can work with them, or so you can really understand why your teenager leaves an empty cereal box in the cupboard, and also how they can learn to advocate for themselves. Next time someone says something that doesn't make sense to you, try this. Pick one word they use and ask, what kind of? A clean question a day keeps assumptions at bay. Let me know in the comments how you might try out a clean question. And if you want to learn more about clean language, subscribe and I'll see you next time.